and this is the Outlet Forum with my esteemed co-host Chris Camella. What up, Chris?
A seismic shift is going on in the NBA, my friend.
Man, there are so many moves being made right now. It'll make your head spin. I'm having trouble even keeping up. Keep track of the ticker below. We got all the moves, all the major moves that we'll talk about from LeBron, Kawhi, Jaylen Brown today, Giannis, John Morant, LaMelo Ball, Walker Kessler, just to name a few. Those are all names that have already been moved or will be moved, and we have so many more players to go. So, Chris, we'll get into all that. We'll get into where LeBron is going to play next season because it has officially come to an end with the Lakers. We'll get into what other teams might be on the horizon for some of these players, like Jalen Duren, right? Is he going to go back to Detroit, or is he going to sign an offer sheet and work out a sign-in trade to Sacramento now that LA's out the picture, getting Walker Kessler? There's so much to get into. There's literally too much to get into, Chris. But
wild couple of days, brother.
First and foremost, let me just talk about how blessed we are to even be talking about the NBA right now. Like, this league has no issues whatsoever when it comes to labor disputes, unlike the MLB right now. So, and then you have referee issues in the NFL. The NBA has seemed to get the off-season portion of their league is almost perfect always, because even though now that you have the second apron, it took teams a few years, but now you're seeing more trades and pre-agency, as Rob Pelinka likes to call it, which is re-upping and getting players and offering deals that you would offer before they even become available and extending them out. So without further ado, the first major move that we're going to talk about today just happened a few hours ago. It was actually in the middle of a crazy World Cup game. We won't even talk that much World Cup, but Senegal and Belgium were in extra time. Belgium with a crazy penalty kick goal. At the same time as that happens, Shams Charania drops that Jaylen Brown is being traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George. That is Pandemic P, Podcast P, whatever P you want to call him.
Body breaking down P.
I didn't say it, he did. Two first-round picks and 2 first-round pick swaps as well. Chris, I give you the floor on this deal. Let me just say first, I don't know what the fuck the Celtics are doing, but can you please try and make some sense as to why they would make this deal? And this is after they put him in a trade package for Giannis that didn't go through. So go ahead.
It's almost hysterical, you know. First of all, let me just say this. Fuck Boston. Buck Boston. This is what happens sometimes when you rush and when you panic. Nothing good ever happens when you rush and when you panic. Now, I understand, Chaz. They struck out on the Giannis thing, right? Which at the time, I understand why. We talked about this last week. Why Milwaukee did what they did. It was a clean slate. We get picks. We get assets. We get guys that we could potentially flip again and get more assets. We could start a total rebuild and allow John Horst to do his thing and build this thing from the ground up again. If they would have gotten Jaylen Brown, you're essentially right back in square one, as you were with Giannis, where now it's like we have a superstar here, and now we're in a position where we kind of need to win now, similar to where the Lakers are at, right? You know, getting Luka, signing him to an extension. We're in a win now mode. The problem with this deal, yes, we all knew Jaylen Brown was going to likely get moved. It felt like the Giannis trade rumors was a bridge too far. Couldn't recover from that. You know, the whole situation with Tatum, which I think was overblown in the first place because of all the years of success they had together. But this was the best you could do, Brad. This was the best you could do. First of all, you keep them in conference. Worse than that, you keep them in the division. And even worse than that, you trade them to your rival, the team that rallied back from a 3-1 deficit and beat your ass in Game 7 on your home floor, knocking out the Celtic Leprechaun down to fucking Foxborough. That's where you trade them? For
Yeah,
Bob
I don't get
Myers,
it.
for Bob Myers and the new general manager there, I don't know if Jameer Nelson or someone, whoever's in the mix, brav fucking oh. You not only get a former finals MVP, a champion, a 5-time All-Star, and a dude with a hell of a chip on his shoulder. You kept Maxey, you kept VJ Edgecombe, you kept a couple other of your young players, and you shedded Paul George's albatross contracts. Yeah, you gave up those picks, but you know what? You essentially now have a big four. So it's a hell of a move for Philadelphia. Boston, it is a bit of a head scratcher because you could have gotten a young player. Chaz, we talked about this. Actually, no, we
Doesn't
didn't
make any
talk about it.
sense, man.
Social media. We said if the Lakers would have done the Walker Kessler package today of 2 first-round picks and 2 first-round pick swaps and Austin Reeves to get Jaylen Brown, I think there would have been a lot of people in Lakerland saying, you know what? It's a steep price, but Jaylen Brown is worth it. And you get a guy who might potentially be a better fit and a better complement to Luka because of his ability to score the ball, defend. He doesn't miss much time. So anyways, this is not a good move for the Boston Celtics, and I just don't know what direction they're going into. Even the Mitchell Robinson signing was nice, but it was like this guy doesn't necessarily fit how Joe Mazzulla's system goes. You know what I mean? Especially when you have a young center like Keita. So some real questionable moves today by the Boston Celtics. And Brad Stevens, to me, as of right now, got this one wrong. Your thoughts, my friend?
So here's the thing. We want to react and everything like that. And it's like, I'm glad we didn't have a show yesterday, Chris, because you would have seen me going off the deep end about, we'll get into it next, but the whole LeBron thing, leaving the team. Not the fact that he's leaving the team, but the way it's going down, right? But now that I had 24 hours to kind of digest it and then see the flurry of moves that were made today, my outlook is a little bit different than what it would be had you asked me yesterday. So
sure.
I'm taking that kind of perspective in talking about free agency moving forward, because these moves are moves that are made that set up the next move, that set up the next move, that set up the next move.
Domino effect,
so
yeah.
For the Boston Celtics, Paul George is actually not a bad asset. It's good to get off that contract because you overpaid him, but Paul George is a good asset when playing healthy. Being healthy is what's been his problem in the last 3 or 4 years. That's why the Clippers chose Kawhi over Paul George, because Paul George, ironically enough, even though he played more games, was less healthy in terms of as consistent as Kawhi was. So I say all that to say, I don't know what the plan is. I don't see the full board on what Brad Stevens sees and what he thinks he can get for Paul George, or what he sees as what Joe Mazzulla can have for his role for Paul George as well. Because Jason Tatum, while he plays a 2-3 combo guard style, they kind of play the same position, even though Jason Tatum is just more physical and obviously just better than Paul George, given the age and everything like that as well. So I don't want to completely poo-poo the deal like that, because you got some draft compensation back and you got second round picks back that you can flip in additional assets as well.
And when George is healthy, he's all-star caliber. I get it.
Yeah, I just want to shed the light, but at the same time, this is Jaylen Brown we're talking about, Chris.
Exactly.
And
who's
I showed
at his prime right now. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna send you a text message right now, Chris.
And
I want you to tell me in real time what I sent you and what it says, because it's going to be hard, but you haven't seen this text message and you probably saw me post it on Twitter or X yesterday. But can you just read to me out loud the time and the date of the text message that I just sent you that is popping up in your phone right now?
Yeah, it was from June 30th. It was a post on X from you. I would love for Rob Pelinka. It was at 1 p.m. on June 30th. So yesterday.
2 hours before free agency starts or anything.
I would love for Rob Pelinka to send every pick the Lakers have for Jaylen Brown. Yeah. Yeah. I think when you're talking about picks, right? And this is, and then also too, you can go back to the Miles Bridges thing. 5 first rounders or 4 first round picks and a swap to get Mikal Bridges that the Knicks did and everything like that. unfortunately, Chaz, this is also a side effect of winning now, is by doing an overpay, right? The Lakers were desperate for a center in order to appease Luka Doncic and shore up an identifiable and obvious weakness, right? So that's why they decided to, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, give up the 2 first-rounders and 2 first-round pick swaps. And not to mention, you could say that there's a Laker tax attached to it. How, excuse me, I've been battling a little bit of a cough, guys. So just, just bear with me. The other thing is, though, with Jaylen Brown, you're talking about, as of right now, I would say a top 6, top 7, somewhere in the top 10 overall at worst. I understand, his offseason has not been out to a good start. The streams, the twitches, this was the best season ever, blah, blah, blah. Some things that were misconstrued maybe, and some things that shouldn't have been said by Jaylen Brown. Why even put yourself in that position, period, coming off of a stunning first round exit to the team that you now play for. But at the same point in time, on the court, you cannot deny this guy's talent. We saw 2 years ago this guy lock up Luka Doncic for the better part of 5 games as Boston cruised to an NBA championship, and he was the Finals MVP. And before that, when they swept the Indiana Pacers in the conference finals, he was he won the Larry Bird Trophy for Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So this is a very accomplished individual who's experienced a lot of success, and his game has only gotten better. This isn't just a middling role player anymore or even a third option. This is a guy who is going to be a key cog of every team he plays for from here on out, at least until, the waning years of his career. So I understand the overpay. And, the thing is with Brad Stevens, the thing I wanted to ask him was, what exactly were you looking for in a deal? Were you just looking for picks? Did you want young assets? Did you want, to be leery of the types of albatross contracts you now have to take on? Because I just think Paul George is still good. But at this stage, Chaz, and this may be, whatever, controversial or whatever, Paul George is now, I think, a third option at this stage in his career for a truly winning team. Boston cannot consider themselves elite in the East or a true title contender if Jason Tatum, who's still not even a year removed from, or just over a year removed from the Achilles injury, and Paul George, who's now going into year 16, year 17, like that cannot be the foundation of a championship caliber squad. I'm sorry. It's just not. So it leads me to think, what's Boston's long-term plan here? Because I just don't get it.
So that's what I'm saying. We don't know the full board. We don't know what their plan is. But ultimately, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I just think that for the Celtics, they have so many assets and so many things that they can do that there's got to be a bigger plan. There's got to be something. But I'll say this. This speaks to Jaylen Brown demanding being out. I think we're trying to make sense of what Brad Stevens is doing and what the plan is and what the board is. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. So what that leads me to believe is that Jaylen Brown requested a trade and demanded a trade and said, get me the hell up out of here. And they probably tried to air their grievances and have a talk and, talk it out amongst family and everything like that as the championship team that they are. But they just weren't able to do it. And ultimately, he probably said, let's go, get me out of here, demanded it. And the Celtics ended up taking, I don't want to say 40 cents on the dollar, not even 60, maybe 80 cents on the dollar. They didn't get back. Like, for somebody that's a top 5, excuse me, a top 5 MVP candidate like Jaylen Brown is, you got to get at least 2 players, excuse me, and 2 picks minimum. Right. And the fact that they got 1 player and 2 first-round picks, the seconds don't really mean much. You can get, you can't even get a role player for 2 seconds, So like 2 firsts and everything like you got to package that up and everything. So,
and I just want to comment on the Sixers end of it real quick. I wasn't sure if you're done, but I wanted to comment on that because now you look at Philadelphia and all of a sudden, we were talking about, obviously New York, they're going to be the favorite coming out of the East again next year because they're the champs, right? But you look at Philadelphia, look at Toronto. Some of these teams now are legitimately going to be in the 2-3 spot, right away. Whereas Miami, we still don't know. Yes, you have Giannis, you have Bam, you have some of the, they're starting to fill out the roster a little bit. They extended Andrew Wiggins, but there's still not a whole lot of cachet there. You're going to need to see the finished product with Miami before we start, seeing, are they going to be a top 3, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference? But I think what's interesting about Philadelphia now is you have 3 potential go-to guys, and it's a significant upgrade over Paul George to the fact that now if Embiid has to miss 30 games or something next year, you have a foundation in place with Maxey and Brown. And of course, with VJ Edgecombe mixed in there, they signed Dean Wade. Nice pickup there. They still got to fill out the bench a little bit. But you can now sustain the loss of Embiid a little bit easier than you could with Embiid and George. You know what I mean? So now you just have one injury-prone problem on the Sixers and not 2. You know what I mean? And I think that's significant right there because that's going to allow Philly to potentially win more games, stay out of the play-in, and potentially get themselves a better matchup situation in the playoffs as far as
let me just say before we move on, because we got to move on.
Yeah.
Because this is a big deal. But let me just say, the Philadelphia 76ers could win the championship next year. Whatever year that Joel Embiid is healthy, if he's healthy, he hasn't had one since his MVP season 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But if he is healthy and this team stays healthy, their top 4 guys are so good that they're going to be able to carry a team with no bench. They could fill out that bench with veteran minimum guys, and they have better than veteran minimum guys on that team right now as it stands and as it's going to be. The Philadelphia 76ers, if healthy, with Edgecombe, who in my opinion should have been a,
Rookie of the Year.
He wasn't there for Rookie of the Year, but man, I saw him play live a few times at the Rookie All-Star game.
He's got an edge and a swag to him that I really like.
Man, he's good. Maxey, him, JB, Joel Embiid. I mean, those guys.
And Chaz,
they're going to be tough.
Tell me I'm wrong. Go back 7 years ago. You look at what a guy like Jimmy Butler meant to the Sixers in 2019. Obviously, that Kawhi shot really buried them. And, the very next summer, that summer, I should say, Butler is gone. JB brings that similar element and edge that I think the Sixer team needs. And I think the fans are going to get behind. Last question I have for you. Can Brown and Embiid, the whole comments about Embiid flopping and everything, and their sort of on-court, little rivalry that they've had through the years in the playoffs and whatnot, do you think that can be buried and those two could end up, if nothing else, have a successful and amicable business relationship, even if they're not great pals? I mean, what do you think about that? Embiid and Brown.
Yeah, they're going to be just fine. Those two aspects of each other, of each player, is why they're going to be able to respect one another and get on the same page, because you only go back and forth and have that rivalry with somebody that's worth playing against. You don't have that with somebody that's not worth it to be on the same level as you. So for him to make that comment, whether it is bad or not, like if Matt Barnes and Kobe Bryant can see eye to eye, somebody like Joel Embiid and Jaylen Brown can see eye to eye as well. Speaking of Kobe, his former franchise is trying to pick themselves up after getting told by LeBron that he is going to play elsewhere. And I think Rob Pelinka got up off the mat before it even got to a standing 8 count, because the Lakers land their guy, Walker Kessler, 4 years, $132 million. They get the deal done for less than what was being reported that Walker Kessler was going to get. This gets him an average of about $32 million a year.
It's 1 year less. Yeah.
1 year less, because that's the max that any other team could offer outside of Utah. Utah gets 2 first-round picks and 2 first-round pick swaps, which is actually more than what Jaylen Brown went for in terms of draft capital. There are no players that go back to Utah at all, but the Lakers get their guy, Chris. This was the major move that the Lakers and Rob Pelinka specifically had to make. He emptied the cupboard of assets and war chest of assets because the Lakers only have a 2032 pick swap and a second round pick left to trade. There are no firsts. There are no first swaps. There's cash, but outside of us one swap and 1 second, the Lakers have nothing. So pretty much their core guys that they have over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, Walker Kessler, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves. Everybody else is going to be filled out, exceptions, binary exceptions, veteran minimums. The Lakers have also signed Sandro Mamushkilishvili, as well as Quentin Grimes and Colin Sexton to a 2-year, $19 million deal.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you make of these moves by Pelinka? And how does it set up for the team moving forward this season?
Well, first of all, Lakers definitely, if they wanted to call themselves the Minneapolis Lakers tomorrow, it would be fitting.
Chris, are you gonna say the same thing that everybody else is saying?
No, because I'm not posting memes that say Los Angeles Crackers on there. You know, I know. I'm just saying. Chaez, come on. You've seen the same stuff I have, but no. This okay. So back to the. I'm gonna get off the nonsense for a second. But I will say this: landing Walker Kessler was important. Walker unfortunately missed, I think, 75 games last year. Chaez, 77 games. Due to the trade, due to the torn labrum in his shoulder. He's had other injury issues early in his career. When he's been on the court, he's been fantastic. And I know our friend of the show, Jovan Buha, I'm going to try to get him on soon, was a big fan of him over a guy like Jalen Duren and feels that Kessler's ability to rim run, be a good roll man, be defensive minded in the paint, could take on different challenges, rebound, block shots, alter shots, is everything that Luka Doncic wanted. Luka said what? Or reportedly said, I want an A-list center, right? That's what he had in Dallas with Gafford and Lively. I'm not sure if they were A-list, but they were good fits for how he liked to play. Kessler fits into that. The question is not going to be about talent or potential or even what he's good at now, Chaez. The issue is going to be the health status. That's what I think is concerning for me, especially when you give up this many assets, signing to this kind of deal, this kind of money for a guy that really hasn't accomplished a whole hell of a lot in his career. You know, I mean, he had a couple of good first couple 2 seasons, but the last couple of seasons have been riddled with injuries. So potential is there, but he's got to also now be like, okay, you're not only just a player on the squad now, you're the starting center of the LA Lakers. That means something in this town. Kareem, Shaq, Pau Gasol, George Mikan, Will Chamberlain, that definitely means something. So all eyes are going to be on you, not to mention you're also a building block on this squad. So that's the other element too that's going to be crucial. Sandro, more of a stretch 4, stretch 5. I think that's going to be a decent fit off the bench. Kind of replaces. He's going to be
solid, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, watch some of his clips. Watch the Toronto Raptors series against Cleveland. He played really well for them. Quentin Grimes, one of Luka's former running mates in Dallas, hasn't really gotten a decent run anywhere he's gone, with the exception of maybe his time with the New York Knicks. We saw what he could do in Philly. I think what the Lakers are trying to do is see what these guys could do in more enhanced roles. And Colin Sexton, he's always been good. I wanted this guy like 2-3 years ago. He's kind of fallen off as far as value goes. But I think if you give this guy an opportunity and he's healthy, he's going to be a really good playmaking, scoring guard off the bench, something that the Lakers have been lacking in recent years. And granted, Chaez, I'm going to miss Marcus Smart going to Houston, of course, and Luke Kennard signing with the Phoenix Suns. It sucks that they ended up staying in the conference, but those guys were key in the Lakers winning that Houston Rockets series this past spring. But some of these replacements are not bad. Lakers still have some other areas they need to address. They could still fill out the bench a little bit, maybe add a little bit more shooting. But so far, it's a good start. I just don't know if these guys are going to pan out based on what their contracts reflect? Are they going to be able to play up to their contracts? I think that's going to be the concern that you and I and everyone else in Lakerland are going to have.
I don't have that concern, really, to be honest with you. I think the reason why Walker Kessler has been targeted for multiple years by the Laker organization, and specifically Rob Pelinka, is because of what he's doing right now in this feed. He gets big, he plays around the basket, he gets lobs, he's a defensive center, he can actually step out and shoot the three. It's not actually hard for him. This guy is worth it. He's young. He's going to learn under the right tutelage of JJ Redick. He's going to have the support of the organization because he's not going to be in trade rumors or not knowing where he's going to come or go or anything like that. He knows he can buy a house in LA and not just, rent or anything like that. The frame of mind that he's going to be in, and he's going to have Luka Doncic. Look at all these easy baskets. Nothing's flashy. Nothing is anything like that. He's strong around the rim. He gets to his spot. He boxes out, gets an offensive rebound, puts it back, gets an and one, gets back on defense. I mean, the guy does it all. So would I have liked to see Jalen Duren on the team as well? Yes, that would have been a perfect fit also. But I think Walker Kessler's defensive mindset, as well as his length, as well as his girth as well, honestly, he's going to be better suited to go up against guys like Jokic or Wemby as well, in my opinion. So for me, a guy like this, he's exactly what the Lakers needed. And I think all of the other guys that they've got, I do think they overpaid. I don't like the additional player options that they gave everybody, but that's probably what you had to do in order to get three guys to wait 24 hours because you were negotiating a Walker Kessler deal, right? And that's what ultimately made the Lakers overpay with additional swaps or additional picks or whatever the case may be, because they needed to hurry up and get it done. So that way the guys that they had agreements with could be agreed to tentatively as well. So I do like the Laker business. And one last thing really quick before we switch gears. All this stuff about Rob Pelinka and he's doing it for his job and this and that. The guy doesn't get enough credit, man. I'll be honest with you. He really doesn't get enough credit to me. He does mismanage assets at times. I'm going to give you a clear one. Luke Kennard. That's clearly a trade in which you gave up an asset for a rental for a few months and you didn't get a player back for him. You let Luke Kennard walk for the same price that you pay, or for more money than you paid Colin Sexton. I get that you like Colin Sexton better than Luke Kennard, but you traded for him, and Luke Kennard helped you get out of the first round and into the second round. I get it, but that's a mismanaged asset, in my opinion. Somebody like Talen Horton-Tucker or Jalen Hood-Schifino, these are all mismanaged assets as well. Like, or even
you can make the argument for Connect,
Zubac. I mean,
yeah,
there are plenty of guys, but
Zubac for
these
sure.
big moves, the biggest, I mean, except for the Westbrook deal, right? That's the biggest move that he swung and missed. And that's in part because Anthony Davis and LeBron James wanted that move to happen. That wasn't something that just happened on its own. That was cultivated and brought up by LeBron James and Anthony Davis reportedly. But bigger moves,
a little bit.
He's been able to make work. So I got to give him credit. He gets credit for getting that god-awful 2022-2023 team to the Western Conference Finals after getting off Westbrook. It took you a pick to get Westbrook and three players, and then another pick, first round, to get off of his contract. Again, mismanaged assets. But you get players like this at the time that you get them, you're going to have to overpay. When are you ever going to get a deal on a player that looks like this? Under the age of 25.
But it's the risk. Of course, you're absolutely right. And well said, by the way. All points I agree with. I know a lot of my friends who were Laker fans were not super thrilled today because some of them preferred to have Jalen Duren. However, does Kessler have a little bit more upside? And does he fulfill the needs that the Lakers are going to need from a starting center? And I think the answer is yes. But once again, it is going to come down, Chaz, to health. You know what I mean? That's really what, to me, that's what it's going to come down to. And by the way, shout out to our guys, the Incline Dodgers, friends of the show, Kevin Klein, talking about on the YouTube chat. Every free agent agreement the Lakers made today was terrible. Kessler's the only applause-worthy move. So, see, it's a mixed bag. JJ Pride's defense, the three new guys, don't bring that. Quentin Grimes is actually a pretty decent defender. I haven't seen Mamu Kelishvili defend. I still have to watch a little bit more of his game to really state that. And I don't think Colin Sexton is awful either. But, could they use another 3-and-D caliber wing? Yes, they could. And also, too, Chaz, we cannot forget, they still have Jared Vanderbilt under contract, which I think is going to be difficult to move. We'll see what they end up doing with that contract. Do they do a stretch provision and then potentially take a flyer on a guy like Jonathan Kuminga? I'm not so sure if that's the case. I was telling you offline, it would be nice if they could package off any combination of Laravia, Ayton, Vando, or Connect and try to land Jeremy Grant, who just got traded to Memphis in the John Morant deal. That's a guy that I think really, fills some holes on this roster with his shooting, his defense, his ability to play both forward positions. He is expensive, but I'm just saying, if you could do something with the guys that we don't really want here anymore with the Lakers and get some guys who actually can fulfill the needs, that would be great. I just don't know how plausible that is. But I'm not going to be mad at these 4 acquisitions because I do think in the long run, they are going to help. And if people are like, oh, well, Rob's going to lose his job. You really think Rob is not consulting Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi and Mark Walter and the others that are now involved in this process? I mean, they understand this is a big summer. So I'm sure he made all of these moves with those guys' blessings,
This guy, I mean, I'm looking at him play right now. I've seen him plenty of times. He's exactly what the Lakers need. Now, is Rui Hachimura somebody that the Lakers need as well? Yes.
Or Jeremy Grant.
I'm not as high on Jeremy Grant and never have been and never will be like you are on Jeremy Grant. Rui Hachimura, especially because just from his continuity with the team already as is alone is why I would prefer Rui. I do think that Tobias Harris going to the Spurs and filling that spot, that starting power forward spot, is a great move for them, but it frees up maybe a space for Rui for him to take, less money to stay with the Lakers. But if he wants to do that, he can, because the Lakers might have space to do that. Reportedly, Chris, and this is just reportedly. What do you think about Jonathan Kuminga at this point?
Yeah, so
if the Lakers can get him at a solid number, and he's an unrestricted free agent, is that somebody that you think? It's somebody I think Rob would go after, but
for sure,
do you think that's somebody that the Lakers can get?
And the longer free agency goes, where teams are signing guys like look for example today, Kelly Oubre Jr. got 2 years, $17 million from the Indiana Pacers. Like, when those kind of guys are getting picked up ahead of Quentin Grimes too, another prime example. When these guys are getting picked up ahead of you, your market is going to shrink up quick. Atlanta declined the option, and he played great for the Hawks. I don't think anyone, Chaz, would have batted an eye if Jonathan Kuminga ended up getting that option exercised and staying in Atlanta at least through next season. So I think that definitely is going to favor the Lakers. And I think, maybe does a team like Sacramento go after him? I'm not so sure. I don't know what the Kings are doing right now. We've heard a lot of different things that they're going to be in on Jalen Duren. They're going to try to ship out Sabonis and Zach LaVine and what's going on with DeMar DeRozan. So they're kind of a mess. So I think if you're the Lakers, the one area I would still like them to shore up is that small forward position. And if you could offload Jared Vanderbilt and or Laravia in order to make a spot for a guy like Kuminga, I would say absolutely. He's young. He's got potential. Put him in a system where he can be featured and get some runway. And I think he could be good. I've always been a fan. I think somebody said today on the radio, he's gotten some bad advice from his agent or from his team. And, they've propped him up to make him believe that he's better than he is. And unfortunately, when you do that, you leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And guess what you end up with, Chaz? Kind of low-level deals. That's what happened with Trevor Ariza. Go back in 2009. his agent, he's a max player. He ended up getting the mid-level exception, and that's all he got really for the rest of his career.
Yeah,
But
sometimes
I do like Kuminga, and I do like him for the Lakers. Go ahead.
Sometimes guys overplay their hand, i.e., Dennis Schroeder. We won't even get into that any further.
Ariza,
we'll leave it at that. Chris, we got to talk about it yesterday. LeBron tells the Lakers he's playing elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I just want to say this. I do think it's time. It was time.
Yeah.
I wish LeBron would have retired as a Laker, but that would have required him to have less in the tank than he has. So I'm okay with it. I'm good with it. I do think that this has happened as well as it could happen because the Lakers broke up with him last year, essentially. They just when you have somebody of his status on an unrestricted on a 1 year lame duck deal, that's a player, not even a player option. It was the player option year. The news was LeBron opting in and not getting an extension. That was the news this time last year. So LeBron saying, "Hey, I'm going to play elsewhere," is him pretty much saving face, because if he would have drug this out and didn't say anything, it would have been egg on his face, I think, because the Lakers would have just made moves elsewhere to force him to move somewhere else. So it was a good breakup. It was a good divorce, I would say.
Amicable, I think is the word.
Amicable is the absolute best word to describe everything like that. I just want to play you, Chris, really quick, what Rich Paul had to say in response to how LeBron, I should say, came to the decision of wanting out from the Lakers. Let's
cue another episode of narrative control with LeBron and Rich.
Yes, sir. Here we go.
Sure. Once he got to a place to where he said, "Listen, man, I understand where things are, and I get it. I know that's where I could probably make the most money. For me, where I'm at today, it's probably not the best thing for me to do. I probably will just go away from that." So I said, "Are you 100% sure?" And he said, "Yes, I'm 100% sure that's not a place I would want to return."
So in the meantime, you're calling him, "I'm 80% likely to go." A couple days later, you're checking in. The percentage has gone down, in other words, and every call, the percentage keeps going down until he's like, "I'm 100% out."
Yeah, and I double and triple check.
So how does his happiness affect that he's already aware of all the circumstances?
When you talk about the happiness of it all versus the team, that can get a little convoluted there. So I didn't want to. I'm just like, okay, I just want to know, because if I have to set the table, and this is one of the teams that's out, that are actually in, and then now they're out. Well, there's two parts that come to this. I also have to place the call, because that team has to have an understanding of it, and they have to go on and do their business as well. And so the one thing we definitely wanted to do was be conscious of that and be respectful to the organization.
So you called Pelinka?
The first day that they can talk to their own player, I talked to him and JJ. We talked. And we've had cordial conversations throughout, and I know there were stuff, there were public talks about us supposed to be meeting and things like that, and we were trying to figure out what that looks like and get things aligned. And it just got to a place to where Brian was like, there doesn't really need to be a meeting. This is where I'm at.
Did they make an offer? Did the Lakers extend an offer?
There didn't need to be one. They wanted to bring him back, obviously. There didn't need to be one, and I didn't want to waste anyone's time. Once he got...
So, Chris.
Thank you, Rich.
That's the full explanation, his version of it, because I think if you ask Jeannie or Rob, it'll be similar, but it probably wouldn't be exactly that.
Right.
And if you ask LeBron, it probably wouldn't be exactly that either, because the agent's spin on it is always to make both sides look amicable in the situation, which is why I think he gives the Lakers an out, saying they didn't need to make him an offer. Yes, they did. They did need to make him an offer. Even if he didn't take it, he earned the right for them to make him an offer. Did you allow them to make an offer? That's where the semantics get to going, because honestly, if it were to come out that the Lakers really didn't make him an offer at all, and Rich Paul stood on business and said they didn't call, they didn't set up a meeting, they didn't anything like that. They were more focused on Austin Reeves and signing Walker Kessler than meeting with us and making us an offer, then that makes the Lakers look bad, right? Mm-hmm. So I think he is doing a very good job of making all parties look good in this situation. And I do take it with a grain of salt, because there is a lot of truth in that, because ultimately LeBron is gone, the Lakers moved on, but the way that you spin it and the way that it's presented does matter. And I think he did a good job. And that's why Rich Paul is Rich Paul.
One of the great, of course. I mean, he's become a very, like him or hate him or whatnot, he's become a very powerful figure within the NBA atmosphere now. His agency's become huge now. It's not just CAA and those guys, or the Mark Bartelsteins or any of those guys. It's Rich Paul is definitely up there. And we also know LeBron's love affair with controlling narrative, trying to get his story out there a lot, quicker than people think. So you have a question here. What is his legacy in LA? All right. First of all, I agree with you. It was time. And we saw that in February of 2025 when they made the acquisition of Luka Doncic. When you make a move like that, you're signaling a changing of the guard, right? And for everyone who was saying to me, well, Chris, they should have gotten rid of LeBron 2, 3, 4 years ago. And we've even heard that, Chaez, on 710 ESPN. Morales has said that, and they're not exactly wrong. But the pushback that I always give is move on to what? What were they going to move on to? In 2023 or 2024, you didn't have an heir to the throne yet. We thought it was going to be Anthony Davis, but guess what question we would have had? Who's going to play with Anthony Davis? You would have still been searching for a number one, because Anthony Davis, especially now at this stage of his career, going into I believe it's going to be year 15 for him next year. I don't think he's a number one anymore, he's certainly not a 1A. He's a true 2, maybe even a 3, depending on who you ask at this point, given all of his injuries and whatnot. But my point is, you are still going to be looking for a Luka, a Giannis, a Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, et cetera, et cetera. That's really what exactly. You were going to be looking for those guys. So now Luka comes into the picture. It's obvious now. It's obvious that they're preparing for my exit. Maybe we could do something together, because LeBron has won with other superstars in his career. But at the same point in time, it's not just this. It's the fact that they're also selling the team. I was in tight with Jeannie. I was in tight with a lot of the people in ownership and whatnot, the Ramby and whatnot. Now that's being sold to Mark Walter. So now everything is kind of moving on without me as the focal point and the main influencer within this franchise. And that's sometimes just how things go. Everybody moves on at some point. You know what I mean? Very rarely do you have Kobe, Dirk, David Robinson, Reggie Miller, Michael Strahan all playing for one team in their career. Even Brady, one of the greatest quarterback of all time, was run out of New England. So I want Laker fans to understand, yes, it was time. We don't need to shove him out the door. We could still be glad that the era is over, but still appreciate the 8 years of helping get this organization back to a period of respectability, which also included a championship, a Western Conference Finals appearance, and multiple playoff appearances. There were other things that happened that were part of his control and beyond his control that happened that kind of debilitated the success. It was a mixed bag. I hear you. But at the end of the day, a championship over 8 years, it's better than nothing. So I appreciate his.
It is better. It is better.
So yeah, go ahead.
I'm not one of those fans, and I'm not one of those Laker fans that don't forget what the 5 years were before he got there.
Sure.
LeBron James brought a title to the team, represented the city of LA well, and we thank him for his time. I think something that I heard Ramona Shelburne say was that It's more his time in LA felt more like a Vegas residency than being a part of the fabric of the team. And I thought that was actually fitting because he could have done some things to ingratiate himself with the city a little well. Some things were circumstantial. Like I do think had there been a parade in 2020, right? The team would feel a lot more closer to the city or the residents of the city, I should say. And which probably wouldn't have given Pelinka the idea to get rid of so many guys on that championship team also, in my opinion. That's just always what I've thought. But ultimately, it comes down to what have you done? And he made all NBA or an all-star every single year that he was here in LA. He brought a title to the team, made 2 Western Conference finals, won one of them, and
willed the team out of the first round.
His way, got the team out of the first round. I'll never forget him throwing the ball behind the backboard in Phoenix his first year at the end of that first season because he was so frustrated going through injury, being the 4 seed with Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram all the way to now. Playing, passing Kareem's scoring record, playing a few games with his son, throwing a lob to his son in the first round of the NBA playoffs in Houston. These are all things that mean something to his time in LA. So his legacy is going to be supplanted. He's not going to get a statue, but that 23 will be up in the rafters. And he's the only player, Chris. He's the only player that's going to have his jersey retired that decided to leave the Lakers on his own terms. Okay.
Interesting.
In terms of continuing to play.
Right.
If you think about it, Kareem retired, Magic retired,
forced retirement. Yeah.
However you want, Worthy.
Yeah.
Gail Goodrich, Jerry West,
Cooper.
Yeah. Why am I forgetting Wilkes? Yeah. Jamal Wilkes.
Sure.
I mean, Paul Gasol, who was traded, right? Like Shaq, who was traded, Kobe retired. LeBron is going to be the only Anthony Davis who's going to get his jersey retired as well. Traded. Either traded or retired. LeBron will be the only one to leave and continue to play somewhere else.
Byron Scott did it. Byron Scott's
not retired.
No, but Byron Scott
is not a Laker legend whose jersey is retired. I'm talking about the guys whose jersey is retired.
Okay, only those guys. Yeah, no, I got you.
Only those guys.
No, for sure. I think you
not
brought up
Fisher, not Ori.
No, okay, my bad. Yeah, I sometimes B. Scott's been such a big part of the fabric of the Lakers. You forget, that he's not up there. Look, at the end of the day, it was time, right? And there were a lot of Laker fans. There were a lot of Laker fans who wanted him gone, right? And that wish now has been granted. But like I said, let's not just completely dump on the time. Could things have been better? Sure. The Russell Westbrook trade that he potentially signed off on, that could have gone a different direction. Overhauling the team months after a championship, that could have gone better, right? He could have stayed healthier. But also, too, we were getting him, Chaz, after year 15 of his career and a lot of miles on those legs. We knew that the body was going to break down. What I never imagined was that he was going to be here 8 years. I thought about 4 or 5 tops. He was only going to play out that contract and he was going to retire after year 19 or 20. But he kept going. Maybe he was on borrowed time, but still, you got to respect the leadership, what he brought to the table. It could have been better. The question now is, where does he go next year? Those 3 teams you have, the Warriors, the Cavs, the Heat, all viable options. I would say the Wizards, do you throw them on there because of his connection with Anthony Davis? We'll see. I think Miami makes a lot of sense, to play next to Giannis and Bam, his connection with Pat Riley. Golden State, we'll see. But here's what I've been tweeting out. You understand you're going to have to play third fiddle on all of these teams. You're going to be third fiddle in Cleveland behind Mitchell and Harden. You're going to be third fiddle in Miami behind Giannis and Bam. And you're going to be third fiddle in Golden State behind Steph. Actually, maybe even fourth. Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond.
No, he's not, Chris.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
I disagree. But go ahead.
No, he's not. He's not going to be third fiddle because when LeBron James gets on the floor, guys defer to LeBron James. Ask Luka Doncic. Ask Dwayne Wade. Ask Chris Bosh. Ask Kyrie Irving. Ask Anthony Davis. These are all guys who are all NBA, all perennial all-stars who have done things in their own right, and that guy steps on the floor and they defer to him. So as much as Jimmy Butler and Bam and Giannis and even Steph to a certain degree, they are going to defer to him, and there's going to be some kind of acclimation period to be able to get Harden, Mitchell. Do you think James Harden and Donovan Mitchell aren't going to defer to LeBron James or Evan Mobley if he's on the floor with them? I'm just saying, I'm taking exactly what you said, and I'm telling you,
the true pecking order.
It doesn't matter. We saw what the pecking order was to be with the Lakers, with Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James. But at the end of the day, who was deferring to LeBron James? AR and Luka. Why? Because even though they knew the pecking order, they still wanted to defer to him because they trusted him and they know his level of experience. Whatever team he goes to, what I'm telling you is that same thing is going to play out in real time, right?
We'll see about that. Yeah, I'm going to answer the question. Sold.
I'm going to answer the question real quick and tell you that I think he's going to Cleveland. The longer this takes, the longer he sits back some waits, the more likely it is he's going back to Cleveland, because everything is going to circle back to him coming back home, in my opinion. I think if he was going to go to Golden State, it would have happened by now already. It would have happened yesterday.
And then they signed Porzingis, they signed Melton.
Now, I want to say something about that really quick.
Go ahead.
Very rarely does a guy get an extension, and in the second year of that extension, there's only a quarter of the salary in the first year guaranteed. And that contract is tradable immediately. It's not tradable. It's normally tradable in December or January, right? We got to wait until the first few months of the season goes on. And then that's always what we're talking about. Guys that sign extensions that are trade eligible in December 15th, sometimes even January 15th. But for some reason, Porzingis' contract that he hasn't even signed yet, or actually maybe he did. He signed it already, and it was in the previous league year. He could get traded right now. So what that tells me is that the Warriors are setting up to be able to make room for LeBron if he chooses to do so. I think the only move that they have to make is find somebody to take Moses Moody in terms of being able to, which, I mean, not too easy given that he has a torn patellar tendon currently.
Right. But yeah, no, I mean, talent-wise.
But I should say, they would have to make that move, but that's not something that would restrict him, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From being able to go to the Warriors. He could go to the Heat, but that's for only $6 million in terms of how much they have space, right? The Cavs, much more. James Harden declined his option, hasn't re-signed yet, in order to leave space open for LeBron, So all of these teams are jockeying position because they know, and they've gotten the back signal that LeBron could be coming possibly their way. But ultimately, I think his best chance basketball-wise would be with the Cavs.
Yeah.
And for his last season, because it's setting up to be that way, should be in Cleveland. Also, the little tidbits about filming the documentary that he has for the past couple years and it coming to wherever he's going to be playing next year. Him saying that he doesn't want a farewell tour, things like that. I just think that he probably is going back to Cleveland. If he was going to go to Golden State, it would have happened by now. And if he was going to go somewhere else, I just think there would be more tea leaves. So for me, I think he's going back to Cleveland. But the last thing, when that whole controversy for a few days came out, when he made those comments on the podcast playing golf, talking about moving the team from Memphis to Nashville. And in that interview, he also mentioned how he hates going back to Cleveland the one time he has to every year in the winter during the season. That sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
And
also too,
that's the one part that makes me think he's not. So
no, for sure. And once again, good points. Cleveland also makes sense because they just lost Dean Wade. He just signed a 4-year, $39 million deal with the Sixers. They don't have a small forward right now. They
want to upgrade Tyson.
Tyson. I get it. They have Tyson.
He's a guy they want to give more playing time to.
For sure. And I'm sure they could, continue to go that route. Cleveland, though, to me, where it makes sense is the fact that they obviously have that spot open, right? The starting three, that's LeBron's natural position, or at least it has been over the last several years, and the leadership aspect. And I think that's something that has been a problem with the Cavs at times. I'm not saying Donovan Mitchell's a bad leader, but I just don't know if he can galvanize because he hasn't necessarily accomplished as much as LeBron. I mean, few have in this league, but and James Harden certainly is not a leader either, not a vocal leader, and Mobley, neither are Mobley or Jared Allen. So I think that would make a lot of sense going back to Cleveland. The reason why it wouldn't make sense is you've already accomplished a lot over there. You know what I mean? So is this where you want to go back for a third time and go play for Dan Gilbert and everything like that, and try to see if you can put this team on your back? I suppose you can try to do that, but it is Miami pairing up with Giannis and Bam, and does that dynamic work? Has the healing time happened with Pat Riley? And then, of course, like you said, with Golden State, a lot of other things need to happen there in order for that team to be successful. Like, do we trade Jimmy Butler and land Anthony Davis? What does Draymond Green come back for and whatnot? So there are some teams, like I think those three teams make the most sense. But I think with Cleveland, especially if he's going to go on a minimum or a short-term deal, I don't know what their mid-level exception looks like. I think that's what it's stacking up to me, that team looks to be the most ready to make a jump in the Eastern Conference. They were just in the Eastern Conference Finals. They got swept, but they were there. So we'll see. I think I agree. I think it's going to end up being Cleveland. Wouldn't shock me though if it's Miami.
Well, there are some other national treasures that are being moved, and Toronto has gotten theirs back. Kawhi Leonard is being traded back from the Los Angeles Clippers to the Toronto Raptors. The Clippers finally pulled the plug on the Kawhi Leonard experience. A few playoff appearances, one Western Conference final appearance, no finals appearances, no
conference championships,
just one big fat NBA investigation on salary cap circumvention that might still hit the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, even though he's playing for a different franchise by the time the ruling comes down. Chris, what do you make of this move? And do you think that the Clippers made the move at the right time, or did they wait too long, or should they have kept it?
No. I went on a show a few weeks back, and I said, if there was ever a time to trade Kawhi Leonard, now's the time. He's going into year 17, I think, next season, right? And I'm sorry, year 16. He's going into year 16. There's a lot of damage on those knees, on those legs. He's very injury prone. He's coming off of a season where he played fantastic and he was able to stay healthy for the most part. He was able to avoid significant amount of time away from the court. He was able to avoid that, So I said, if you traded off Zubac and Harden, you let Paul George walk the year before that, then what are you going to do at this point? You don't have the assets to go out and land another major star, right? And even if you did, why would you trade those other guys? That doesn't make any sense to me. So this was the last book, the last hand that Lawrence Frank and Mark Hughes and Trent Redden had to play, which was trade off Kawhi and recoup as many assets as you can that you lost in landing Kawhi and, by extension, Paul George in the OKC deal. Toronto, I think, makes a lot of sense. They landed Brandon Ingram. You mentioned the picks. Don't forget Grady Dick. Really good, shooting guard. Had some injury issues. Kind of fell out of favor there with the head coach over there, Darko. And now I think he could benefit from a scenery change. And then you plug Kawhi in where Ingram was between Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. That's brilliant right there. He brings a championship cachet, two-time champ, two-time finals MVP. Obviously, he's well revered in Toronto for one of the great seasons in franchise history, leading them to their one and only championship in 2019, the game-winning shot against Philly in Game 7, leading them to a championship against the shorthanded Golden State Warriors. He was fantastic. So, of course, he now goes back to a familiar spot. Yeah, Masai's not there. Nick Nurse is not there. But it's a position where Toronto, who has got a good young nucleus already in place, not to mention some really good, pieces that they have found in the second round of the draft and or undrafted pieces that they have also been able to integrate as well. So they're going to be a nice squad next year. the Clipper legacy with Kawhi is that way worse than LeBron. If y'all are disappointed of what LeBron accomplished with the Lakers, which included a championship, I could only imagine what Clipper fans feel. 1 conference finals appearance, 4 first-round exits, 2 play-in tournament losses, a blown 3-1 series lead.
So
I mean, one injury after another. Didn't elevate the team. Didn't elevate the game.
So I thought about it like this, Chris.
It was a failure.
It was a failure. Definitely a failure. Like
a failure.
You can look at LeBron James's time in LA and compare it to Kawhi Leonard's time in LA for the exact amount of time, or minus 1 year. 1 year was the difference.
Yeah.
But Kawhi played 7 seasons for the Clippers.
Right.
And a huge failure, a catastrophic failure. In terms of now compared to like
teams and everything,
everybody else. Yeah. By Clipper standards, honestly, it was a success. If you just compare it to everything else that they've done and they've been able to, this era is arguably, I mean, I don't want to say it's more popular than the Lob City era or anything like that, but more, I mean, they made the only Western Conference Finals that they've ever had.
They did. And like I said, yes, there is something to that, but they also, Chaz, set the because of that Lob City era, the bar was here now. It wasn't here. Not to mention, they brought in Kawhi and Paul George to get them to the level that the Lob City of Blake Griffin, JJ Redick, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Jordan never could, which was not only get us to the conference finals, but essentially get us to the conference finals every year and then maybe win us a championship. And I think the failure is heightened and it's excoriated by the fact that Oklahoma City, who they traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to, as well as a boatload of picks in order to land Paul George, won a championship before they did. And the guy that they traded to land Paul George has won an MVP, has won a finals MVP and an NBA championship, 2-time finals MVP, I should say, by the way, and has won an NBA championship before the Clippers did. That's what really makes this situation that much more of a failure, is the team that you dealt with in order to help you win a championship or at least be make a finals appearance or 2. It superseded you, went past you, so that's what really makes this the worst part. And then all of this aspiration controversy, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And, listen, like we were saying with LeBron, all things come to an end. And I think the only positive with the Clippers, with all of these trades that they've made, is the amount of picks that they have gotten in return. It starts with Keaton Wagler, the number 5 pick. They've got some other good young players there as well. Darius Garland, I think they're going to re-sign Benedict Mathurin as well. Wagler, Ingram, you could keep them or flip them later on. We'll see what those picks in Toronto come up to. Niederhauser, I like, the big man. But yeah, the Clippers are now going to fall toward, maybe a low-tier play-in team or, even below that going into next year, considering how the West is. So, but at least they got good compensation for Kawhi. What did you think of the trade itself?
I think they got good compensation. I think that the Clippers got somebody back in Brandon Ingram that I think they'll be able to continue to build around and do something with, because Brandon Ingram is very talented and he's still not even 30 years old. So that's the guy that they can
stay healthy.
He just got to stay healthy. Got to stay focused. But I love the get back for Brandon Ingram as well as Benedict Mathurin, who's solid, as well as many other players that they have on that team that I do believe in. There are some other trades, Chris, that have gone around, and I just want to touch on a few before we get on out of here. John Morant, LaMelo Ball, Julius Randle, Tyler Hero. We talked about Giannis and Kessler, obviously, as well. Plenty of other guys have been traded also. I just want to ask you a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
Would you rather have the backcourt of Ant and LaMelo Ball or John Morant and Damian Lillard for 1 year and 1 year only, and that's next season?
I would say LaMelo and Ant, to be quite honest. It's a ballsy move Minnesota made, but a necessary one in order to shore up that point guard position. I hated the fact they gave up Naz Reid They're going to go a little smaller, it looks like. I mean, I guess they feel they could find big men elsewhere. But they really wanted a point guard, and they not only got one, they got one that I think that they believe is going to be a foundational piece, a building block next to Ant-Man for a long time. It could be volatile. We'll see if Ant-Man and LaMelo could get on the same page. Maybe LaMelo can now take his game to another level and mature a little bit next to Anthony Edwards, who's experienced some success in recent years in the playoffs and whatnot. But yeah, I think with Ja, and you said Ja and Dame, right, in Portland, it's a lot more volatile considering the injury that Dame is coming off of and the injuries as well as the immaturity of Ja Morant. I think I'm not so sure how that's going to really jive as well, because they are two players that play a similar position. So I don't know. It's tough, man.
I think
I know you're excited for Portland.
Michael Redd has been one of my favorite follows in the NBA circles for a while, and he made a comment about teams investing in veteran guys on their teams to be able to help guys moving forward. And I cannot tell you how drastic and how important it's going to be for Ja to have somebody like Dame in his ear.
Andrew Holiday.
Honestly. Andrew Holiday as well, but specifically Dame, because as good as Drew Holiday is, he's not as talented as Ja, right? True. So Damian is more talented than Ja and will demand that respect. Not to say that he won't respect Drew, but it'll be a little bit different coming from Dame, because Dame's a top 75 guy as well. So all time. So for Dame to be in his ear and kind of come from the same background, really, in East Oakland, like Ja has as well, in terms of, how he was brought up and stuff like that, a little bit, rougher, like most NBA guys as well. I think he's just going to be able to get through to him a little bit more, and I think you're going to see a resurgence from Ja, especially with not Tiago Splitter, with
Mike Nori.
Yeah. I don't know why I said I'm thinking.
Although I kind of wish
because I do like what the Bulls have done. I do wish Chauncey.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Chauncey and Dame and Drew for Ja. Oh my God, Chauncey just threw your life away.
For sure.
Potentially, allegedly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also too, I think this trade it could be a wake up call for Ja too, basically saying, bro, you were the number 2 pick, you were going to be the face of the Memphis Grizzlies, you were, but now they just traded you off for really not much. Chris Murray, who is a middling role player at this young stage of his career, and Jeremy Grant, who's kind of at his peak, maybe starting his decline at some right now. That's all they got for you. You know what I mean? So I hope this is a wake up call for Ja. And, for Portland, it's a weird experiment. And I wonder if there's going to be another move that follows. I know a lot of people are like me are thinking there's got to be another move, because you got 4 guards now. You know what I mean?
Out of there.
You got Scoot, who showed some great potential. He had an amazing game. What was it against Portland? For Portland in Game 2 of the first round series against San Antonio. He had a great series. On a show. Yeah, he had a great series. But that one game where he dropped like 30 some odd points, he was incredible. You have Scoot there. You have Dame coming off the injury. You have Drew Holiday, who is a stable presence. And what's good about Drew is that he's more of a combo guard at this stage in his career, so you could pair him with any 3 of those guys. But this does kind of limit Scoot's potential. So now the question with Portland is, do they just see Dame and Ja as short-term guys, or do they think like, what, let's try to sell high on Scoot and address another area of the team? You know what I mean? And try to get a guy that's a better fit next to some of these other guys. So it's very interesting, and I'm intrigued. I think it's high risk, but potentially high reward. We'll see. And then not to mention, Chaz, don't forget about Denny Advia. He's been a big piece of this team, and certainly a featured guy the last year or two. So, and he made a big jump this past year. So where does he fit in next to Ja, and whose team this is, and who the focal point is? Mike
he's the number 1 guy.
Right. Denny, but is Ja going to see it that way? Is Ja going to see it that way? Dame and Drew might. But is Ja going to see it that way?
No one cares what Ja sees, because it's about what he comes in to prove. Like, he's the guy that has to prove it, not Denny,
see it that way.
Not Dame, and not Ja. He better, or else he won't. He better, or else he won't even be on the team, because coming in with that kind of mindset, he won't play the right way, and they'll be trying to get his ass not only about the team, but probably about the league at that point. Because Ja's really on his last leg, in my opinion. There's not very many teams that are going to be willing to take on Ja. The Memphis Grizzlies had to give Portland a first-round pick just to take Ja at this point.
That's
so
pathetic. Yeah, that's the other thing too.
Yeah, you're giving up assets just to take on a guy like this. No, like he's on his last leg, in my opinion. So he better have that mentality and not see it the way that you said that he might. So
very intriguing. I know. Before we get out, there was one more move that I liked. Tobias Harris to the San Antonio Spurs. Solid stretch 4, veteran presence. I think he's going to fulfill a potential issue that I think was exposed by the Knicks, which was after Wemby, you were too small. That was the problem. You need another, and I know it's hard because they have bigger guards, very long, athletic and whatnot, but to get a forward who can go out and create his own shot, who, could provide veteran leadership, experience, I think that's going to pay major dividends for the Spurs. So savvy move by R.C. Buford and Greg Popovich and Mitch Johnson to add a player like Tobias Harris. I think that's going to be big. That was another one of my favorite moves that we saw in the last couple of days.
I need Rob Pelinka to get Jonathan Kuminga or Rui Hachimura or flip DeAndre Ayton for Daniel Gafford. Jeremy Grant is not a winning player.
I disagree, but okay. I disagree. I'm sorry. I'm not a winning player. Come on.
Look at his game. Have you seen him play?
Yes, I've seen him play. I've seen him play in some big moments with Oklahoma City, with Denver. Everywhere he's gone, he's made an impact. Unfortunately, he's just been in a myriad of losing situations the last several years between Detroit and a rebuilding Detroit team and a rebuilding Portland team.
All right. Well, we'll just agree to disagree.
But hold on. But you would sneeze at Jeremy Grant if they were to land him.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay,
but it's going to cost them an asset to get him. He's not an unrestricted free agent, is he?
No. He's got, I think, 2 more years left on his
deal. Right. That's not a guy you go give up assets for, in my opinion.
But Chaz, 1 year guaranteed. 1 year guaranteed.
But Lakers don't have any assets to get him, right? And
unless Memphis takes on Vando and Connect and or LaRavia. And you don't think they would do that? Memphis is going nowhere.
No, that's how bad Connect and Vando are. You can't even trade those 3 guys for Jeremy Grant.
But Memphis does not want to pay that salary.
They might. Okay. We'll see.
Okay.
Maybe we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
We may be on next week. We may not. We'll see. But we'll see 2 weeks after that. Chris, by then, maybe Jeremy Grant will be a Laker. Who knows? Until then, we appreciate you guys tapping in with us on another episode of the Outlet Forum Free Agency Special. Chris, where can they follow you, my man?
You can follow me on X at Chris_Camelo, as it says here on the screen. See Camelo1 on Instagram, at the Outlet Forum. That's at the Outlet Forum on IG, YouTube, X. Follow us on that. Enjoy the World Cup. Have a great 4th of July weekend, everybody. Yes, Chaz and I may be back next week. We might not. We're kind of playing it by ear right now. But I'm sure there will be some more things that have happened. But just these 2 days alone, we all need a little bit of a breather. But we're also glad that we're not getting it either, because just too many good news to talk about.
NFL training camp will open before we find out where LeBron James is going to play next year.
Bold claim.
Mark it down. Well, we'll see you guys next week or the week after. Thanks for hanging out.